What would you do if this happened to you? Hit like if you've ever been betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from. The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor of the five-star hotel ballroom in Victoria Island, Lagos, sending crystal shards across Adunni's designer wedding shoes. Her breath caught in her throat as she stared at her new husband, Kemi, standing frozen beside the head table, his face drained of all color. "What did you just say?" Adunni whispered, her voice barely audible over the Afrobeats music pulsing through the speakers. The DJ had just announced the couple's first dance when her father-in-law, Chief Adebayo, had pulled her aside with words that made her world crumble. "Your husband is not who you think he is, my dear," Chief Adebayo repeated, his weathered hands gripping her shoulders. "Kemi is not my son. He's been working as an errand boy for my family for the past 5 years. My real son, Folarin, has been studying abroad in London." The wedding reception continued around them, 300 guests dancing, laughing, celebrating what they believed was the union of two prominent Lagos families. Adunni's father, Dr. Hayomide Bekir, had spared no expense for his only daughter's wedding. The venue sparkled with gold and ivory decorations, tables groaned under the weight of jollof rice, pepper soup, and roasted goat meat. But all Adunni could hear was the thundering of her own heartbeat. She turned to face Kemi, who was now backing away from the head table, his eyes darting toward the exit. For 6 months, she had believed she was marrying into the wealthy Adebayo family. Kemi had courted her with expensive gifts, taken her to upscale restaurants in Ikoyi, and promised her a life of luxury. Her friends at the bank where she worked as a senior account manager had envied her catch, a handsome man from old money who seemed devoted to her every need. "Kemi!" she called out, her voice cutting through the celebration. "Come here. Now." The music seemed to fade as guests began noticing the tension at the head table. Adunni's mother, Mrs. Folake Bekir, approached in her elaborate Geli head wrap, concern etched across her face. "Adunni, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Kemi finally stopped his retreat and walked back, each step heavy with resignation. When he reached them, Chief Adebayo's voice boomed over the music. "Tell her the truth, boy. Tell her who you really are." The ballroom felt like it was spinning. Adunni gripped the edge of the table, her fingers crushing the delicate fabric of her custom-made wedding dress. "You told me you were Chief Adebayo's son. You showed me pictures of your family home in Banana Island. You—" "I can explain," Kemi interrupted, but his voice cracked. "Adunni, please let me explain." "Explain what?" Dr. Bekir had joined them now, his booming voice attracting more attention. "Explain how you've been lying to my daughter for 6 months? Explain how you convinced her to marry you under false pretenses?" Chief Adebayo shook his head grimly. "I only found out yesterday when I returned from my business trip to South Africa. My house staff told me someone had been impersonating my son, using my name and resources to woo women in Lagos. I never imagined it would go this far." Adunni felt her knees buckle. 6 months of courtship, 6 months of believing she had found her prince, 6 months of planning the perfect wedding, all built on lies. The man she had just married, the man she had given her virginity to just last night in their honeymoon suite, was nothing more than a fraud. "The marriage certificate," she whispered. "Is it even legal?" "He used false documents," Chief Adebayo confirmed. "His real name is Kemi Okafor. He's from Imo State, not Lagos. He's been sending money to his village family with what he stole from my household accounts." The guests were starting to gather around them now. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wildfire. Adunni could see her university friends pointing and talking behind their hands. The photographer continued snapping pictures, capturing every moment of her humiliation for posterity. "How could you do this to me?" Adunni's voice was stronger now, fueled by rage rather than shock. "How could you let me believe?" "Because I love you." Kemi finally spoke up, his voice desperate. "Everything I felt for you was real. Yes, I lied about who I was, but my feelings—" "Your feelings?" Adunni laughed bitterly. "You destroyed my life for your feelings?" Dr. Bekir stepped forward, his face thunderous. "Young man, you have exactly 5 minutes to leave this hotel before I call the police. The marriage is void, the documents are fraudulent, and you've committed theft and impersonation." "Adunni, please." Kemi reached for her hand, but she jerked away. "Give me a chance to make this right." "Make it right?" She could feel tears threatening, but she refused to cry in front of all these people. "You've made me a laughingstock. Every person in Lagos society will know that I was stupid enough to marry a conman." As if summoned by her words, her phone began buzzing with notifications. Social media was already alive with videos from the wedding. Someone had been live streaming, and the confrontation was going viral with hashtags like #LagosWeddingScandal and #FakeRoom. Chief Adebayo placed a protective arm around her shoulders. "My dear, I'm truly sorry. If I had known what he was planning, I would have stopped this months ago. My real son is flying in from London tomorrow, and we'll get to the bottom of how this happened." But Adunni wasn't listening anymore. Her eyes were fixed on Kemi, who was slowly backing toward the exit, his designer suit, probably bought with stolen money, hanging off his frame like a costume. In that moment, she realized that her pain was being overshadowed by something else, a cold, calculating fury. "Don't you dare leave," she said quietly, but her voice carried across the now silent ballroom. "Don't you dare walk away from what you've done." Kemi paused at the threshold, his hand on the door. "Adunni, You want to know what's going to happen next?" She stood up straighter, every inch the daughter of one of Lagos's most successful doctors. "I'm going to destroy you. Systematically. Completely. You thought you could play games with the wrong woman." The hotel security was approaching now, summoned by the commotion. But before they could reach him, Kemi turned and fled into the Lagos night, leaving behind his new bride, 300 shocked guests, and a mess that would take more than an annulment to clean up. As the security guards chased after him, Adunni stood in the center of her ruined wedding reception and made a promise to herself. Kemi Okafor had destroyed her reputation, her trust, and her dreams of a perfect marriage. Now she was going to make sure he paid for every single lie. But first, she needed to know exactly how deep his deception went, and she had a feeling that what she'd learned tonight was only the beginning. 3 weeks after the wedding scandal that had Lagos society buzzing, Adunni sat in her father's study, surrounded by legal documents and private investigator reports. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but her determination had only grown stronger with each revelation about Kemi's deception. "Folarin Adebayo arrived at Murtala Muhammad Airport this morning," announced Mr. Taiwo, the private investigator her father had hired. 28 years old, MBA from Oxford, clean record. He had no idea someone was impersonating him. Dr. Bakar paced behind his mahogany desk, his anger still simmering. How many other women did this Kemi fool? How long has he been running this con? From what we've uncovered, sir, your daughter was his most ambitious target. He'd been dating several women across Lagos, but none from families as prominent as yours. It appears he was planning this wedding for months, slowly building credibility. Adunni looked up from a bank statement showing unauthorized withdrawals from Chief Adebayo's business account. He stole over 2 million naira. The car he proposed to me in? Stolen. The apartment he claimed was his investment property? He was squatting there while the real owner was traveling. A knock on the study door interrupted them. Dr. Bakar's housekeeper, Mama Sidi, entered with a concerned expression. "Olga, there's a young man at the gate. Says he's Chief Adebayo's son, wants to speak with Miss Adunni." Adunni's stomach clenched. She wasn't ready to face the real Folarin, the man whose identity had been stolen to humiliate her. But she needed answers, and he might have them. "Let him in," she said quietly. 10 minutes later, Folarin Adebayo walked into the study, and Adunni immediately understood how the deception had worked. The resemblance between him and Kemi was striking, both tall, lean, with the same angular jawline and deep-set eyes. But where Kemi had carried himself with nervous energy and false confidence, Folarin moved with the quiet assurance of someone who had never needed to pretend. "Miss Bakar," he said, extending his hand. "I'm deeply sorry for what happened. I flew back as soon as my father told me about the situation. His accent carried traces of his London education, polished but not pretentious. Adani found herself studying his face, looking for signs of deception, but his concerns seemed genuine. Please sit down. Dr. Becker gestured to a chair. We're trying to piece together how this happened. Folarin settled into the leather chair, pulling out his phone. I've been going through my social media accounts. Somehow, Kemi gained access to my photos, my university information, even personal family details. He's been using my identity online for at least a year. A year? Adani's voice was sharp. Then there might be other victims. That's what I'm afraid of. Folarin showed them his phone screen. I've already found 3 fake dating profiles using my pictures and biographical information. One woman in Abuja has been sending money to me for 6 months, thinking we were in a long-distance relationship. Mr. Taiwo leaned forward. How did he access your personal information so thoroughly? I think I know. Folarin's expression darkened. Last year, my father hired him through an employment agency. He was supposed to be handling correspondence, managing some of the household staff, running errands. He had access to family computers, personal documents, even my father's business files. Adani felt the familiar surge of anger. So he was planning this from the beginning. He wasn't just an opportunist, he was a professional con artist. It gets worse, Folarin continued. I spoke to my father's accountant this morning. The theft goes back 8 months. Kemi was systematically draining multiple accounts, taking amounts small enough to avoid immediate detection. He used the money to fund his fake lifestyle. Dr. Becker slammed his fist on the desk. That boy made my daughter look like a fool in front of the entire Lagos elite. The humiliation. Papa, please. Adani stood up, her composure returning. Being angry won't solve anything. We need to focus on catching him and making sure he faces justice. Folarin watched her with growing respect. You're handling this better than I expected. What did you expect? Adani's tone was cool. That I'd be crying in my room, destroyed by some village boy's scheme? He picked the wrong woman to mess with. Have you had any contact with him since the wedding? Folarin asked. He's been trying to reach me. Adani pulled out her phone, showing dozens of missed calls and text messages. Begging for forgiveness, claiming he can explain everything. But I'm not interested in his explanations anymore. What are you interested in? For the first time since Folarin had entered the room, Adani smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Justice. And making sure he never does this to another woman. Mr. Taiwo cleared his throat. We've located him. He's staying with a cousin in Mushin, trying to keep a low profile. The police are ready to arrest him, but they need your formal complaint to proceed. File it, Adani said immediately. Theft, fraud, impersonation, whatever charges will stick. There's something else, Folarin said carefully. My father wants to make this right somehow. The wedding expenses, the embarrassment to your family. Your family owes us nothing, Dr. Becker interrupted. This isn't about money. It's about respect, Adani added. And making sure other women don't fall for his lies. Folarin nodded. Then let me help. I know Lagos society. I understand how these scandals work. If we handle this correctly, we can turn the narrative in your favor. What do you mean? Right now, people are talking about you as the victim who got fooled. But what if the story became about the strong woman who brought down a dangerous criminal? What if your pursuit of justice becomes the headline instead of your humiliation? Adani studied him carefully. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Because he used my identity to hurt you. That makes this personal for me too. Folarin's voice was steady. And because I've seen what you're capable of in just the past hour. You're not the type of woman who stays down when life knocks her over. Before Adani could respond, her phone rang. The caller ID showed Kemi's number. Without hesitation, she answered and put it on speaker. Adani, please, you have to listen to me. Kemi's voice was desperate, crackling through the phone. I know you're angry, but I can make this right. I have information about Chief Adebayo's business that could be valuable. We can work together. Work together? Adunni laughed coldly. You must be more delusional than I thought. You don't understand. I know things about the Adebayo family that could destroy them. If you help me disappear, I'll share everything with you. We could both benefit from. Are you trying to blackmail me now? Folarin's face had gone pale. He was frantically gesturing for her to keep Kemi talking while Mr. Taiwo worked on tracing the call. It's not blackmail, Kemi continued. It's partnership. I still love you, Adunni. We could start over somewhere else. I have enough money saved too. Money you stole. Money I earned by being smart. By seeing opportunities others missed. His tone was shifting, becoming harder. You want to destroy me? Fine. But I'll take others down with me. Starting with the precious Adebayo family name. The line went dead. In the sudden silence, Adunni looked around the room at three faces filled with concern and growing anger. Did you get the trace? She asked Mr. Taiwo. Still working on it. But we recorded everything. That sounded like a threat. Folarin was staring at his hands. What could he possibly know about my family's business that would be damaging? I don't know, Adunni said quietly. But I have a feeling we're about to find out. Chief Adebayo's massive Banana Island mansion felt like a fortress under siege. Adunni sat in the leather-appointed library, watching the family patriarch pace frantically while Folarin stared out the floor-to-ceiling windows at Lagos Lagoon. The emergency family meeting had been called after Kemi's threatening phone call, and the tension was suffocating. He knows about the Singapore accounts, Chief Adebayo finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. The ones I use for the oil contracts with the ministry. Folarin spun around from the window. Papa, what Singapore accounts? Son, there are aspects of business you don't understand yet. Don't lie to me. Folarin's controlled demeanor cracked. Not now. Not after what this situation has already cost Miss Becker. Adunni watched the family drama unfold, feeling both vindicated and horrified. So Kemi hadn't been bluffing. The charming errand boy had been gathering ammunition while pretending to serve the family. Kemi had access to my private office for 8 months, Chief Adebayo continued. He handled confidential correspondence, filed sensitive documents. He could have photographed anything. What exactly are we talking about here? Adunni's voice cut through the tension. Tax evasion? Money laundering? Because if Kemi has evidence of criminal activity, he's not just threatening your family, he's threatening me by association. The older man's face flushed with embarrassment. Some of my business dealings with government contracts weren't entirely above board. Standard practice in Nigeria, you understand. Everyone does it. Everyone doesn't get caught, Folarin said grimly. Papa, how much money are we talking about? The Singapore accounts hold approximately $50 million. The room fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Adunni felt her mouth go dry. $50 million in offshore accounts would be front-page news across Nigeria. The FCC would investigate, foreign governments would freeze assets, and the family's reputation would be destroyed overnight. No wonder he was so confident, she murmured. He wasn't just stealing household money, he was documenting evidence for blackmail. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Kemi again, beautiful Adunni, I hope your new friends are explaining the situation to you. We should meet tonight to discuss our mutual interests. Victoria Island Lagoon Restaurant, 8 p.m. Come alone, or the documents go to the Punch newspaper tomorrow morning. She showed the message to Folarin and his father. Chief Adebayo's hands were shaking as he read it. You can't meet with him, Folarin said immediately. It's too dangerous. Dangerous for who? Adunni stood up, her mind racing. He's not going to hurt me physically. He still thinks he can manipulate me. Adunni, please. Think about it, she interrupted. He's desperate now. The police are looking for him, his con is exposed, and his only leverage is information that could destroy your family. But what does he really want? Chief Adebayo looked up hopefully. What do you think he wants? Money, obviously. And a way to escape Nigeria without facing charges. Adunni began pacing, her strategic mind taking over. He's gambling that I care enough about protecting you both to help him. Do you? Folarin asked quietly. The question hung in the air. Did she care about protecting the family whose name had been used to humiliate her? Or was this an opportunity for revenge against everyone who had played a role in her public embarrassment? That depends, she said finally, on how honest you're willing to be with me going forward. Father and son exchanged glances. Chief Adebayo nodded slowly. What do you want to know? Everything. The real scope of your offshore dealings, how much evidence Kemi could have, and what you're willing to do to stop him. For the next hour, Chief Adebayo laid bare his business empire's darker side. Government contracts awarded through bribery, environmental violations covered up with payoffs, tax evasion schemes spanning multiple countries. It wasn't just standard Nigerian corruption, it was systematic criminal enterprise spanning decades. The irony, Adunni said when he finished, is that I spent 6 months thinking I was marrying into a respectable wealthy family. Instead, I almost married an errand boy who was blackmailing actual criminals. We're not criminals, Chief Adebayo protested weakly. You're just not caught yet. Adunni checked her phone. It was 6:30 p.m. I have 90 minutes to decide whether to meet with Kemi or let him destroy all of us. All of us? Folarin questioned. My name is connected to this family now, whether I like it or not. The wedding made sure of that. If this scandal breaks, people will assume I knew about the corruption. My father's medical practice could be affected, my own career in banking could be ruined. The weight of the situation was becoming clear to everyone in the room. Kemi's deception had created a web that trapped them all. What if we give him what he wants? Chief Adebayo suggested. Money to disappear, help leaving the country? That's not justice, Folarin said firmly. He can't just steal, lie, and blackmail his way to a happy ending. And it won't stop him, Adunni added. Men like Kemi don't disappear quietly. He'll keep coming back for more money, or he'll try the same con on other families. We'd just be passing the problem along. So what do you suggest? Adunni looked at her phone again. Another message from Kemi, tick-tock, beautiful. Your choice, meet me tonight, or read about Chief Adebayo's Singapore surprise in tomorrow's headlines. She made her decision. I'm going to meet him. But not to negotiate. She turned to Folarin. How quickly can you contact the FCC? The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission? Why would I? Because we're going to beat Kemi at his own game. Adunni's voice was cold and determined. If your father cooperates with the authorities voluntarily, provides evidence of his own wrongdoing, and helps them build cases against the government officials who took his bribes, he might avoid prison time. Chief Adebayo's face went white. You want me to confess? To destroy my own business empire? I want you to choose between losing your money and losing your freedom. Because those are your only options now. Adunni grabbed her purse. Kemi thinks he holds all the cards, but he's about to learn that blackmail only works when people are afraid of the truth. What are you planning? Folarin demanded. I'm planning to end this, she said, heading for the door. Tonight. Permanently. But as she reached the threshold, her phone rang with an unknown number. The voice that answered made her blood run cold. Hello, Mrs. Okafor. A woman's voice said sweetly. I think it's time we met. The woman sitting across from Adunni at the Sheraton Hotel coffee shop looked like she had stepped out of a magazine. Tall, elegant, with the kind of natural beauty that didn't need enhancement, she introduced herself as Chioma Okafor, and dropped a bombshell that left Adunni speechless. I've been married to Kemi for 3 years, Chioma said calmly, stirring her cappuccino. We have twin daughters. 2-year-old girls named Amara and Adana. Adunni's hands trembled as she set down her own cup. That's impossible. I married him 3 weeks ago. No, sister. You participated in a fake ceremony with a man who is already legally married. Chioma pulled out her phone, showing photos of a traditional wedding ceremony. This was our wedding in Owerri, Imo State. My family, his family, proper bride price paid, everything legal and binding under customary law. The photos were devastating. Kemi in traditional Igbo attire, looking genuinely happy as he placed a necklace around Chioma's neck. Extended family members celebrating, children dancing, the full pageantry of an authentic Nigerian wedding. How did you find me? Adunni managed to ask. Social media, like everyone else in Nigeria. The hashtag Lagos wedding scandal has been trending for weeks. When I saw the photos of your wedding, I couldn't believe my eyes. My husband was marrying another woman in Lagos while I was home in Owerri taking care of his children. Adunni felt like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. Does he know you're here? He thinks I'm visiting my sister in Port Harcourt. I drove to Lagos yesterday to see for myself. Chioma's voice hardened. To meet the woman my husband abandoned his family for. I didn't know, Adunni said desperately. I had no idea he was married. He told me. He told you he was Chief Adebayo's son. I know. He's been lying to both of us, sister. Chioma leaned forward. But there's more. Things you need to know before you decide how to handle this situation. More? Adunni's voice was barely a whisper. Kemi isn't just a con artist. He's dangerous. Chioma pulled out a medical report. This is from University Teaching Hospital in Owerri. Emergency room treatment for injuries I received 6 months ago when I questioned him about money missing from our account. The report documented a fractured wrist, bruised ribs, and facial contusions. Domestic violence, clearly and thoroughly documented. He hits you? When he drinks? When he's stressed? When I ask too many questions about his business trips to Lagos? Chioma's voice remained steady, but her hands shook slightly. I've been planning to leave him for months, but he controls all our money. Every time I save enough to take the children somewhere safe, he finds it and takes it. Adunni stared at the medical report, feeling sick. The money he was stealing from Chief Adebayo's accounts, he was sending it to you. Some of it. But most of it went into a separate account I didn't know about until yesterday. An account with over 5 million naira that he's been building for months. 5 million naira? Adunni's mind raced. That's on top of what he stole from the Adebayo family. How much money has he stolen total? I don't know. But I know he's planning to leave Nigeria tonight. Chioma pulled out another phone, an older model with a cracked screen. This is his backup phone. He left it behind when he rushed to Lagos for your wedding. I've been reading his messages. She showed Adunni a series of text exchanges with someone named Boss Man. The messages detailed plans for leaving Nigeria by boat from Lagos to Cotonou, then flying to South Africa from Benin Republic. It was a smuggling route that would bypass Nigerian immigration entirely. He's meeting someone at Tarkwa Bay at midnight, Chioma continued. A boat captain who specializes in getting people out of Nigeria quietly. It costs 2 million naira. That's why he needs money from the Adebayo family. Adunni realized. He doesn't have enough to pay for his escape without liquidating the evidence he's holding over them. What evidence? Adunni explained about the Singapore accounts and Chief Adebayo's corruption. Chioma listened with growing amazement. So he's blackmailing this rich family to get money to abandon his real family and flee the country? That's exactly what he's doing. Adunni felt a new kind of rage building. But there's something I don't understand. Why are you telling me this? Why help the woman he left you for? Chioma's composure finally cracked. Because I want him destroyed. Completely. I want him to lose everything, the stolen money, the escape plan, his freedom, his ability to ever hurt another woman. What about your children? If he goes to prison, what happens to your daughters? They'll be safer without him. And... Chioma hesitated. There's something else. The reason I really came to find you. What? You're not his first victim in Lagos. Before you, there was another woman. Wealthy family, similar approach. He took her for almost 10 million naira before her family discovered the truth. Adunni's blood ran cold. What happened to her? She committed suicide. The shame, the debt, the public humiliation, she couldn't handle it. Her family tried to keep it quiet, but I heard about it through church connections. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too crowded. Adunni needed air, needed space to process what she was learning. Kemi wasn't just a con artist, or even just a wife-beater. He was destroying women's lives systematically, and she had been his latest target. "What's your plan?" she asked Chioma. "I want to work with you. Together, we can make sure he never hurts anyone again." "How?" "You're meeting him tonight, right? At Victoria Island Lagoon Restaurant?" "How did you?" "I saw the text message on his backup phone. He's planning to collect blackmail money from you, then go straight to Tarqua Bay for his midnight boat." Chioma leaned closer. "But what if he never makes it to that boat?" "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we give him exactly what he deserves. Both of us. Together." Before Adunni could respond, her phone buzzed with yet another message from Kemi. "1 hour, beautiful. Bring the money, or Chief Adebayo's secrets go viral. And don't even think about involving the police. I have friends watching you." Adunni showed the message to Chioma, who smiled grimly. "Friends watching you," she repeated. "He's more desperate than I thought." "We need to be smart about this," Adunni said. "If we're going to take him down, we need to do it right." "Oh, we're going to do it right," Chioma assured her. "By the time this night is over, Kemi Okafor will wish he had never heard either of our names." But as they prepared to leave the coffee shop, either woman noticed a man in the corner booth who had been listening to their entire conversation. A man who immediately pulled out his phone to warn Kemi that his 2 wives were planning something dangerous. The Lagos Lagoon reflected the city lights like scattered diamonds as Adunni walked toward the Victoria Island Lagoon restaurant. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her stride remained steady. Hidden in her designer handbag was a small recording device provided by Mr. Taiwo, and tucked into her phone case was a GPS tracker that would allow Folarin and the private investigator to monitor her location. She was 15 minutes early, which gave her time to scan the restaurant for threats. Kemi had claimed to have friends watching her, and she believed him. Men like him didn't operate alone, they had networks of enablers and accomplices who helped facilitate their crimes. "Table for one?" the hostess asked. "I'm meeting someone. Table near the water, please. Good view of both entrances." As she settled into her chair, Adunni's phone buzzed with a message from Chioma, "In position. Remember the plan." The plan was simple but dangerous. While Adunni kept Kemi occupied at the restaurant, Chioma would be breaking into his hideout in Mushin to gather evidence of his other crimes. They had agreed that exposing his pattern of targeting wealthy women was more important than protecting Chief Adebayo's secrets. Women's lives were at stake. "You look beautiful tonight." Adunni didn't flinch as Kemi's voice came from behind her. She had heard him approaching, had seen his reflection in the restaurant's glass doors. When she turned to face him, she was struck again by how ordinary he looked. Average height, pleasant features, the kind of man who could blend into any crowd. The perfect predator. "Kemi." She gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit down." He was wearing a different outfit than she'd ever seen him in, cheap jeans and a faded polo shirt instead of the designer clothes he'd worn during their courtship. His confidence seemed shakier too, his eyes darting around the restaurant nervously. "Did you come alone?" he asked, settling into the chair. "Did you?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You're learning to be careful. I like that. I learned it from you. Apparently, you're an excellent teacher of deception. Adunni, I know you're angry." "Angry?" She leaned back in her chair, studying his face. "I'm way past angry, Kemi. I'm curious now. Curious about how someone becomes the kind of person who destroys women's lives for money. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me. Deliberately. Systematically." She signaled the waiter. "Let's order drinks. This conversation is going to take a while." For the next 20 minutes, they engaged in a careful dance of manipulation and counter-manipulation. Kemi tried to charm her, claiming that his love for her had been real despite the lies. Adunni played along, pretending to consider his offer to share Chief Adebayo's secrets in exchange for helping him escape Nigeria. "The thing is," she said, sipping her wine, "I've been thinking about what you said. About working together." His eyes lit up with hope. "Really? Really? But I need to know I can trust you. I need to know everything about your business operations." "What do you want to know? How many other women have you done this to?" Kemi's expression flickered. "What do you mean?" "I mean, am I your first victim, or are there others? Because if we're going to be partners, I need to understand the scope of what we're dealing with." He was quiet for a long moment, clearly calculating how much to reveal. "There have been a few others. Wealthy women who are looking for the right kind of husband." "How many is a few?" "3. Maybe 4. "Maybe 4? Adunni's voice remained calm, but her grip tightened on her wine glass. "You don't remember? Look, it's not what you think. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. It was just about the money." "What about the woman who killed herself?" Kemi's face went pale. "How do you know about her?" "Word gets around, Kemi. Lagos isn't as big as you think." Adunni leaned forward. "Tell me about her." "That wasn't my fault," he said quickly. "She was unstable. Emotional problems. When her family found out about the money, she couldn't handle the pressure. But that had nothing to do with me." "Nothing to do with you?" Adunni's calm was beginning to crack. "You stole millions from her family, destroyed her reputation, and she's dead. But it had nothing to do with you. She made her own choices. Like I made my own choice to trust you? Like your wife made her choice to marry you?" Kemi froze. "My wife? Did you think I wouldn't find out about Chioma? About your twin daughters? About the money you've been stealing from your own family to fund your Lagos lifestyle?" For the first time since sitting down, Kemi looked genuinely afraid. "Chioma doesn't matter. That marriage is over. Is it over because you beat her when she asked questions about your business trips? She told you that? She showed me the hospital records." Adunni pulled out her phone, displaying a photo of Chioma's medical report. "Fractured wrist, bruised ribs, facial contusions. Your handiwork." Kemi was backing away from the table now, his chair scraping against the floor. Other diners were starting to look in their direction. "You set me up," he realized. "This whole meeting is exactly what you think it is." Adunni stood up smoothly. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "I'll release those documents," he threatened. "Chief Adebayo's Singapore accounts, the government contracts, everything. I'll destroy his whole family." "Go ahead." Adunni's voice was ice cold. "Chief Adebayo is cooperating with the EFCC as we speak. Voluntary disclosure, full cooperation, plea agreement already in progress. Your blackmail material is worthless." The color drained from Kemi's face entirely. "That's impossible." "Is it? You taught me something valuable, Kemi. You taught me that desperate people make stupid decisions. And right now, you're the most desperate person in Lagos." Kemi's hand moved toward his pocket, and Adunni tensed. But instead of a weapon, he pulled out a phone. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," he said, his voice shaking with rage. "I have connections you don't know about. People who owe me favors. This isn't over. Actually, it is." Adunni gestured toward the restaurant entrance, where 2 men in suits were approaching their table. "EFCC agents. They've been waiting outside since I arrived." But as the agents moved closer, Kemi suddenly smiled. "You think you're so smart. You think you've won." He held up his phone, showing a text message. "But you forgot something important." Adunni read the message on his screen, and her blood turned to ice. "Package delivered. The wife is secured. Awaiting further instructions." "Chioma," Adunni whispered. "Chioma," Kemi confirmed. "Did you really think I didn't know about your little alliance? Did you think I wouldn't have contingency plans?" The EFCC agents had reached their table now, but Kemi held up his hand. Gentlemen, before you arrest me, I think Miss Becker would like to know where her new friend is spending the evening. Where is she? Adunni demanded. Safe. For now. But her safety depends entirely on how cooperative you decide to be. Kemi's confidence was returning. You see, I may have underestimated you, but you definitely underestimated me. One of the agents stepped forward. Kemi Okafor, you're under arrest for fraud, theft, and… Wait! Adunni interrupted. Agent, I need to speak with you privately. Right now. As she pulled the agent aside to explain about Chioma's kidnapping, Kemi called out to her. You have exactly 1 hour to decide, Adunni. My freedom for her life. Choose wisely. The FCC safe house in Ikoyi buzzed with activity as Agent Folake Adeyemi coordinated the search for Chioma. Maps of Lagos covered every available surface, while tech specialists traced phone signals and analyzed CCTV footage. Adunni sat in the center of it all, fighting panic as precious minutes ticked away. We've located the source of Kemi's last message, Agent Adeyemi announced. Alaba International Market, specifically a warehouse in the electronics section. But it's a maze in there, dozens of buildings, hundreds of shops, thousands of people. Then we search every building, Adunni said firmly. Miss Becker, with respect, we're dealing with professionals here. Kemi's threats suggest he has accomplices who are willing to hurt Mrs. Okafor if we move too aggressively. Folarin, who had arrived 20 minutes earlier, looked up from his phone. I've been researching Kemi's background, tracing his connections before he started working for my family. The employment agency that recommended him has some interesting ties. What kind of ties? The owner, one Mr. Emeka Nwachukwu, has been investigated twice for human trafficking. No convictions, but the pattern is clear. He specializes in providing domestic staff to wealthy families across West Africa. Agent Adeyemi frowned. You think this is bigger than just one con artist targeting rich women? I think we're looking at an organized criminal network, Folarin replied. Kemi wasn't working alone. He had support, training, resources. Someone has been facilitating his operations. Adunni's phone rang. Kemi's number. She looked at Agent Adeyemi, who nodded and activated the recording equipment. 45 minutes left. Kemi's voice was calm, controlled. Have you made your decision? I want to talk to Chioma first. Proof that she's alive and unharmed. Smart girl. Hold on. There was a brief pause, then Chioma's voice came through the speaker. Adunni? I'm okay. I'm in some kind of warehouse. There are 3 men here, and they have… The phone was snatched away before she could finish. Kemi's voice returned. She's fine. But my friends are getting impatient. They don't like complications. What do you want, exactly? Simple. You call off the FCC investigation. You publicly retract your statements about fraud and theft. You convince Chief Adebayo to drop all charges. In return, Chioma goes home to her children, and I disappear from Nigeria forever. And if I refuse? Then Chioma becomes another suicide statistic. Tragic story about a young mother who couldn't handle her husband's scandals. The threat was delivered so casually that it took Adunni's breath away. This wasn't the nervous, desperate man from the restaurant. This was someone comfortable with violence, someone who had clearly done this before. I need more time, she said. You have 30 minutes. I'll call back with instructions on how to make your public statement. And Adunni? Don't try to trace this call. My friends are very good at what they do. The line went dead. Agent Adeyemi immediately began coordinating with her tech team, trying to extract every piece of information from the brief call. The background noise suggests an industrial area, one of the technicians reported. Heavy machinery, possibly generators. And there was an echo that indicates a large, enclosed space. That's consistent with the Alaba warehouse theory, Agent Adeyemi mused. But there are over 200 warehouses in that complex. Adunni stood up abruptly. What if we're thinking about this wrong? What if we don't need to find Chioma to stop Kemi? What do you mean? I mean, what if we cut off the head of the snake? You said this looks like an organized network. Networks have leaders, funding sources, operational centers. If we find those, we might be able to pressure them into releasing Mrs. Okafor. Folarin finished. But how do we identify the leadership? Agent Adeyemi was already reaching for her phone. I'm calling our financial crimes unit. If this is a sophisticated operation, there will be money trails. Bank accounts, property transfers, suspicious business registrations. While the agent made her calls, Adani found herself thinking about everything Kemi had revealed during their months of courtship. The expensive gifts, the upscale restaurants, the confident way he navigated Lagos high society. Someone had been funding his lifestyle, teaching him how to blend in with the wealthy elite. Folarin, she said suddenly. The employment agency that recommended Kemi to your father, do you have their contact information? Yes, but... Call them. Now. Tell them you're looking to hire additional staff for your family. Someone with experience working for prominent Lagos families. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that if Mr. Nwachukwu is running a network of con artists, he probably has other operatives working in other wealthy households right now. And if we can identify those operatives, we can roll up the entire network, Agent Adeyemi said, having overheard the conversation. Brilliant. But we need to move fast. Folarin was already dialing. The conversation that followed was brief but informative. Mr. Nwachukwu was eager to place more staff with the Adebayo family, and he had several candidates with experience in similar situations. He's sending me a list of potential staff members along with their current placements, Folarin reported. Names and addresses of the families they're working for. How long until we get that list? He said 20 minutes. Adani checked her phone. That gives us exactly 10 minutes before Kemi calls back with his demands. But before anyone could respond, Adani's phone rang again. This time it wasn't Kemi, it was an unknown Lagos number. Hello? Miss Becker? The voice was female, young, frightened. My name is Blessing Okoro. I work as a housemaid for the Johnson family in Lekki. I think I know where your friend is being held. Agent Adeyemi gestured frantically for Adani to put the call on speaker. How do you know about my friend? Adani asked carefully. Because I've been watching the news about your wedding scandal. When I saw Kemi's picture, I recognized him. He used to come to my employer's house for meetings with other men. They would talk about assignments and targets. I think they're part of the same group. What group? I don't know what they call themselves, but they recruit domestic workers to spy on wealthy families. Some of us just report back on the family's routines and finances. Others, like Kemi, take on bigger roles. Agent Adeyemi leaned toward the phone. Miss Okoro, this is Agent Adeyemi with the FCC. Are you saying you've been coerced into spying on your employers? Not coerced. Paid. Very well paid. But when I heard about the woman being kidnapped, Blessing's voice wavered. That's not what I signed up for. Violence was never supposed to be part of this. Where do you think Mrs. Okafor is being held? There's a warehouse in Alaba where they have meetings sometimes. I've driven there twice with my employer's car when they needed transportation. Building 47, near the generator market. Adani felt a surge of hope. Can you meet us there? I can't. If they see me with you, they'll know I betrayed them. But I can tell you the layout, the security, how to get in without being seen. As Blessing provided detailed information about the warehouse layout, Adani realized that Kemi's network was far larger and more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. Domestic workers in dozens of Lagos households were feeding information to a central organization that used that intelligence to target wealthy families for various crimes. Miss Okoro, Agent Adeyemi said, we're going to need you to testify about this organization. Will you help us? Will you protect me? Because when they find out what I've done, we'll protect you. Adani interrupted. All of us. But first, we need to save Chioma. Then you need to move now, Blessing said urgently. Because I just got a text message. They're planning to move her in 30 minutes. The tactical team assembled outside Alaba International Market looked like they were preparing for war. EFCC agents in bulletproof vests coordinated with Lagos State Police, while surveillance drones provided aerial reconnaissance of the massive commercial complex. Adunni insisted on joining the operation despite Agent Adeyemi's objections. "This is not a movie, Miss Becker," the agent warned as they approached Building 47. "These are dangerous criminals who have nothing to lose. Chioma is only in danger because she tried to help me," Adunni replied, checking her own bulletproof vest. "I'm not staying behind while someone else risks their life for my mistakes." The warehouse district was eerily quiet for 11:30 p.m. Most of the electronics shops had closed hours ago, leaving only security guards and the occasional late-night truck driver. Building 47 sat at the end of a row of identical structures, distinguished only by a faded sign advertising Import-Export Services. "Thermal imaging shows at least 4 people inside," reported the drone operator. 3 on the ground floor, 1 elevated position that could be a second-floor office. "That matches Blessing's description," Agent Adeyemi confirmed. "Guards on the main floor, Chioma probably being held in the upstairs office." Folarin, who had also insisted on joining the operation, pointed to a side entrance. "According to the building plans, there's a service entrance that leads directly to the stairwell. If we can get in there without alerting the guards." "Too risky," Agent Adeyemi decided. "We go in through the main entrance, overwhelm them with superior numbers." But before anyone could move, Adunni's phone rang. Kemi again. "Time's up, beautiful," he said without preamble. "I hope you've prepared your statement retracting all charges against me. Actually, Kemi, I have a counter-proposal." Adunni looked at Agent Adeyemi, who nodded encouragement. "What if I told you that we know about your entire network? About Mr. Nwachukwu's employment agency, about the domestic workers spying in dozens of Lagos households, about the systematic targeting of wealthy families?" The silence on the other end stretched for nearly 30 seconds. "You're bluffing," Kemi finally said, but his voice had lost its confidence. "Am I? Let me tell you what we know. Blessing Okoro, housemaid for the Johnson family in Lekki. She's been reporting their financial information to your organization for 8 months. Chidi Emeka, driver for the Williams family in Ikoyi. He's been photographing documents from Mr. Williams' home office. Should I continue? How did you? Does it matter? What matters is that your network is compromised. We have names, addresses, bank records, everything. The only question now is whether you want to go down as a petty con artist or as the leader of a major criminal organization." Agent Adeyemi was watching the building through binoculars, waiting for any sign that their conversation was creating panic inside. "What do you want?" Kemi asked finally. "Simple exchange. You release Chioma unharmed, and we'll consider making a deal on the organized crime charges. You keep playing games, and we make sure you spend the next 20 years in Kirikiri prison. And the corruption evidence against Chief Adebayo? Already worthless, like I told you. He's cooperating fully with the EFCC investigation." Another long pause. Then, "You have 15 minutes. Come to the warehouse alone, unarmed. Any sign of police and your friend dies. I want to talk to Chioma first. No more talking. 15 minutes or we're done." The call ended. Agent Adeyemi immediately began revising the tactical plan. "He's panicking," she observed. "Panicked criminals make mistakes, but they're also more dangerous." "I'm going in," Adunni announced. "Absolutely not. We'll send in a trained negotiator. He knows me. He thinks he can still manipulate me. That gives us an advantage. It also makes you a target." Folarin stepped forward. "What if she doesn't go in alone? What if I go with her?" "Why would he agree to that?" "Because I'm Chief Adebayo's son. He might see me as additional leverage, another hostage to control the situation." Agent Adeyemi considered the proposal. "It's still too dangerous. We should stick to standard tactical procedures." "Your standard procedures won't work if he panics and kills Chioma," Adunni argued. "But if I can get close enough to create a distraction." What kind of distraction? Adani pulled out her phone, showing them the recording app she'd been using all evening. I've been documenting everything, he said. Confessions to fraud, theft, domestic violence, blackmail, and now kidnapping. If I can get him to make additional incriminating statements while you're positioning for the rescue, it could work, Agent Adeyemi admitted reluctantly. But we need perfect timing and a lot of luck. Then let's make our own luck. 10 minutes later, Adeni and Follerin approached the warehouse entrance. The building looked abandoned from the outside, but they could see light leaking from windows on the second floor. Somewhere above them, Chioma was waiting to be rescued. Remember the plan, Adani whispered to Follerin. Keep him talking, make him feel like he's in control. When I give the signal, duck and cover. I know. The front door opened before they could knock. A tall man with tribal scars on his cheeks gestured them inside with a pistol. Phones, he demanded. They handed over their devices, knowing that the EFCC team was monitoring their location through hidden GPS trackers. The interior of the warehouse was exactly as Blessing had described, open floor space filled with shipping containers and electronic equipment, with a staircase leading to a second-floor office area. Up there, the guard ordered. As they climbed the stairs, Adani could hear voices from the office above. Kemi's voice, calm and controlled, giving instructions to someone about cleaning up loose ends. Her blood ran cold as she realized what that might mean. The office door opened to reveal Kemi sitting behind a desk like he was conducting a business meeting. Chioma was tied to a chair in the corner, conscious but clearly frightened. 2 more armed men stood guard near the windows. Welcome to my real office, Kemi said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I'm afraid this is where our negotiations end. But as he spoke, Adani noticed something that made her heart race with hope. One of the windows behind him showed a red laser dot moving slowly across the wall. The EFCC tactical team was in position. All she had to do now was create the perfect distraction. The office felt smaller with 6 people and enough tension to suffocate them all. Kemi sat behind his makeshift desk like a CEO conducting a board meeting, while his armed associates maintained positions near the windows. Adani forced herself to appear calm despite the laser sight she'd glimpsed moments before. Before we proceed, she said, settling into a chair across from Kemi, I think we should discuss the full scope of your operations. I'm curious about how someone builds such an impressive criminal network. Kemi's ego couldn't resist the flattery. You want to know how I did it? How a village boy from Imo State built an organization that has been operating successfully in Lagos for 3 years. I'm fascinated, Adani said, activating her backup recording device. The sophistication, the planning, the resources required, it's actually quite impressive. Follerin sat quietly beside her, understanding his role as silent observer while she drew out Kemi's confessions. It started small, Kemi began, his voice taking on a proud tone. Mr. Nwachukwu recognized my potential when I first came to Lagos. He taught me that wealthy families are the most vulnerable targets because they have the most to lose. How so? Reputation, status, social position. Take those away, and rich people will pay anything to get them back. Kemi gestured toward Chioma. Even marry their daughters to complete strangers if they believe it will enhance their standing. But the domestic worker network, that must have taken years to establish. 5 years. We started by placing people in 50 different households. Drivers, housemaids, gardeners, security guards. All of them reporting back on family routines, financial information, personal secrets. His smile was cruel. You'd be amazed what people discuss in front of the help. One of the guards near the window shifted nervously, and Adani caught a glimpse of movement on the rooftop across the street. The tactical team was preparing for entry. How many families have you targeted for major cons? She continued. Dozens. But only a few were selected for the full treatment, the fake marriage approach. Kemi's expression darkened. You were supposed to be the biggest score ever. Your father's medical practice, your family's social connections, the bank accounts I could have accessed as your husband. What went wrong? Chief Adebayo came back early from South Africa. If he had stayed away another week, I would have had time to drain several more accounts and disappear before anyone realized the truth. Chioma spoke for the first time since they'd arrived. What about our children, Kemi? What about Amara and Adana? They'll be better off without a father who is going to prison eventually, he replied callously. I was planning to send money from South Africa, but honestly, children are expensive complications. Adani felt sick listening to him dismiss his own daughters so casually. And the woman who committed suicide? Was she just an expensive complication too? Kemi's expression hardened. Folashadon Wegba was weak. She couldn't handle the pressure when her family discovered the missing money. That wasn't my fault. You stole 8 million naira from her family's construction business. I borrowed 8 million naira. There's a difference. Is there? Because from what I understand, she killed herself rather than face the shame of her family's financial ruin. That was her choice. Just like it was Chioma's choice to trust you. Just like it was my choice to believe your lies. Kemi stood up abruptly, his composure finally cracking. Enough games. You came here to negotiate my release in exchange for your friend. Are you going to cooperate, or do I need to demonstrate how serious I am about ending this situation? He nodded to one of his associates, who moved closer to Chioma with his weapon. That was the moment Adani had been waiting for, when all attention was focused on the threat to Chioma rather than on perimeter security. Actually, Kemi, there's something I should probably mention, she said conversationally. Remember when you told me not to involve the police because you had friends watching me? What about it? Well, it turns out I have friends too. And they'd been watching you. The first indication something was wrong came from the guard at the left window, who suddenly jerked backward as if struck by something. Before anyone could react, the office windows exploded inward as tactical team members rappelled from the rooftop. EFCC! Nobody move! Chaos erupted. Kemi dove behind his desk while his associates spun toward the windows with their weapons raised. Folarin tackled Adani to the floor while Agent Adeyemi's voice boomed through a megaphone from outside. Building is surrounded! Surrender immediately! But in the confusion, one of Kemi's men had grabbed Chioma's chair and was dragging her toward a back exit that Blessing hadn't mentioned in her intelligence briefing. Let her go! Adani shouted, struggling to her feet despite Folarin's attempt to keep her down. Stay where you are! Kemi emerged from behind the desk with a pistol pointed directly at her. One more step and I'll shoot you myself! The tactical team members who had entered through the windows were engaged with his other associates. But Kemi had a clear line of fire to both Adani and the exit where Chioma was being dragged away. You think you've won? Kemi's voice was rising to a scream. You think destroying my operation means anything? There are 5 other networks like mine operating in Lagos right now. You've stopped nothing. Maybe not, Adani admitted. But I've stopped you. Have you? Because I still have options. I can kill you right now, escape with Chioma as a hostage, and disappear into the Niger Delta where your EFCC friends will never find me. You could try that, Folarin said, rising slowly with his hands visible. But there's something else you should know. What? The money you've been stealing from my father's accounts? We've been tracking where it went. Every bank transfer, every cash withdrawal, every payment to your accomplices. Folarin smiled grimly. Including the 2 million naira you paid to Mr. Nwachukwu last month for exclusive access to his domestic worker network. Kemi's face went pale. That's impossible. Is it? You see, when you're planning to cooperate with the FCC investigation anyway, you make sure to document everything. Names, dates, amounts, locations. Folarin pulled a folded paper from his pocket. Mr. Nwachukwu was arrested 2 hours ago, along with 15 of his domestic worker operatives. Your entire network is gone. The information hit Kemi like a physical blow. His gun hand wavered as he processed the destruction of everything he'd built. But the real surprise, Adani added, is what we found when we raided Mr. Nwachukwu's office. What? Records going back 7 years. Details of every operation, every target, every crime, including the systematic harassment and financial destruction of Folashade Onwegbu. Aduni's voice was ice-cold. She didn't commit suicide because she was weak, Kemi. She killed herself because your network threatened to destroy her younger sister's medical school education if she exposed the truth about the missing money. The gun in Kemi's hand was shaking now. You're lying. Am I? Check your phone. I'm sure Mr. Nwachukwu has been trying to reach you for hours. For just a moment, Kemi's attention wavered as he glanced toward his phone on the desk. That moment was all Agent Adeyemi needed to take the shot. The tranquilizer dart hit Kemi in the shoulder, and he collapsed before he could pull the trigger. Within seconds, the remaining tactical team members had secured the scene and were freeing Chioma from her restraints. Is it over? Chioma asked as Aduni helped her stand. It's over, Aduni confirmed. For him anyway. But as the EFCC agents led Kemi away in handcuffs, still groggy from the tranquilizer, he managed one final threat. This isn't finished, Aduni. You have no idea how many enemies you've just made. 2 months after Kemi's arrest, Aduni sat in her office at First Bank of Nigeria, staring at a resignation letter she couldn't bring herself to sign. The scandal had died down in the media, but its effects rippled through her professional and personal life in ways she hadn't anticipated. Another threatening letter, her assistant, Funmi, announced as she placed an envelope on Aduni's desk. Third one this week. The letter was similar to the others, cut-out magazine letters pasted on plain paper, warning her to stop interfering in business that doesn't concern you, or face serious consequences. Since the EFCC's investigation had expanded to include dozens of wealthy Lagos families who had unknowingly employed Nwachukwu's domestic worker spies, Aduni had become a target for people whose secrets were being exposed. Any word from Agent Adeyemi about security? Funmi asked. She says they're working on identifying the source of the threats, but... Aduni shrugged. How do you investigate anonymous letters when half of Lagos society might want revenge against you? Her phone buzzed with a text from Chioma. Court hearing moved to tomorrow. Kemi's lawyer is arguing for reduced charges. Can you testify again? Aduni sighed and typed back, of course. How are the girls? Amara asks about her papa every day. I don't know what to tell her. The complexity of co-parenting with a convicted criminal was something no one had prepared Chioma for. Despite everything Kemi had done, he was still the father of her children, and explaining his absence to 2-year-old twins was heartbreaking. A knock on her office door interrupted her thoughts. Folarin entered, carrying a bouquet of flowers and wearing an expression of concern. More threats? He asked, noticing the letter on her desk. The usual. Anonymous warnings about minding my own business. Aduni gestured for him to sit. How did your father's hearing go? Better than expected. The plea agreement is holding. 3 years suspended sentence, full restitution to the government, and cooperation with ongoing investigations into ministry corruption. Folarin set the flowers on her desk. He wanted me to thank you again for convincing him to come forward voluntarily. How is he handling the social consequences? The usual. Former friends avoiding him, business associates distancing themselves, society invitations drying up. Folarin smiled grimly. Apparently, voluntary confession doesn't make you popular at Lagos Country Club. And you? I'm discovering who my real friends are. Turns out there aren't as many as I thought. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, 2 people bonded by shared scandal and mutual support. Over the past 2 months, Folarin had become a steady presence in Aduni's life, helping her navigate the legal complexities and social fallout of the case. There's something else, Folarin said finally. The EFCC investigation uncovered something interesting about the threats you've been receiving. What kind of interesting? They're not coming from victims of the domestic worker network. They're coming from someone connected to a different criminal organization entirely. Aduni felt her stomach drop. What do you mean? Remember when Kemi said there were 5 other networks operating in Lagos? It turns out he wasn't lying. One of those networks has been watching the EFCC investigation very closely, and they're not happy about the precedent it's setting. What kind of precedent? Wealthy families cooperating with law enforcement instead of paying bribes to make problems disappear. It's bad for business when rich people start choosing jail time over blackmail payments. Before Adunni could respond, her office door burst open. Her father, Dr. Becker, rushed in with panic written across his face. "Papa, what's wrong?" "They took your mother," he said breathlessly. Two men, professional, knew exactly what they were doing. They left this. He handed Adunni a photo that made her blood run cold. Her mother, Mrs. Folake Becker, sitting in what looked like a shipping container, holding that day's newspaper to prove the timestamp. "When did this happen?" Folarin demanded, already pulling out his phone to call Agent Adeyemi. "An hour ago. She was leaving her boutique in Victoria Island when they approached her. The security guards said they showed some kind of identification, claimed to be EFCC agents." Dr. Becker's hands were shaking. By the time he realized something was wrong, they were gone. Adunni studied the photo more carefully. Behind her mother, she could see stacked shipping containers and industrial equipment. "This looks like a port facility. Maybe Apapa or Tincan Island." "There's something else," Dr. Becker said, pulling out his phone. "They called me 20 minutes ago." He played a recorded message. "Dr. Becker, your wife is safe for now. But your daughter's interference in Lagos business affairs has created problems for people who prefer to operate quietly. Miss Becker has exactly 24 hours to publicly withdraw her cooperation with all ongoing EFCC investigations. If she doesn't, your wife will become another casualty of Lagos crime. They want me to sabotage the prosecution of Kemi and the domestic worker network." Adunni realized. "If I withdraw my testimony, the cases collapse." "Then you withdraw your testimony," Dr. Becker said firmly. "My wife's life is worth more than justice for some con artist. Papa, if I do that, dozens of other criminals go free. And what's to stop them from targeting other families the same way? I don't care about other families right now." Folarin had finished his call with Agent Adeyemi. "The EFCC is mobilizing every available resource. They're treating this as a kidnapping with terrorist implications." "Terrorist implications?" Adunni questioned. "Using violence to influence legal proceedings is considered domestic terrorism under Nigerian law. It carries mandatory life sentences." "Good," Dr. Becker said grimly. "Now find my wife." Agent Adeyemi arrived within 20 minutes, bringing a full tactical support team and mobile command unit. Adunni's office building was quickly transformed into a crisis management center. "We've identified the vehicle used in the kidnapping," Agent Adeyemi reported. "Stolen Toyota Camry found abandoned in Surulere 2 hours ago. But we did recover something interesting from it." She showed them a business card for Maritime Security Solutions, with an address in Apapa Port Complex. "It's a front company," she explained. "Registered 6 months ago, no legitimate business activity, but they have leasing agreements for 3 shipping container storage facilities." "That matches what we can see in the photo," Adunni observed. "But Apapa Port has hundreds of container storage areas. How do we narrow it down?" "We're working on it. Satellite imagery, traffic camera footage, cell tower data. But these people are professionals. They're not making obvious mistakes." Adunni's phone rang. Unknown number. "Miss Becker." The voice was electronically distorted. "I trust you've received our message? I want to speak to my mother." "That can be arranged. But first, let's discuss your decision. Are you prepared to withdraw your cooperation with the EFCC investigations?" "Let me talk to her first." There was a brief pause, then her mother's voice. "Adunni, don't do what they want. These people are evil. They told me about other families they've destroyed. Don't let them." The phone was taken away before she could finish. "Your mother is very brave," the distorted voice returned. "But bravery won't protect her if you make the wrong choice. You have 18 hours remaining." "Wait." The call ended. Agent Adeyemi had been tracing the signal, but she shook her head grimly. "Bounced through multiple cell towers, probably using signal amplifiers to mask the real location." What did Mama mean about other families they'd destroyed? Adani asked. We're investigating that now, Agent Adeyemi replied. But based on preliminary research, we think this organization has been operating a protection racket targeting wealthy families involved in legal proceedings against criminals. Pay us, or face consequences. How many families? At least 12 over the past 2 years. Most paid the demanded bribes rather than risk their loved one's safety. Follerin was studying the maritime business card. What if we approach this differently? Instead of trying to find your mother, what if we find them? What do you mean? I mean, what if we give them what they think they want? Agent Adeyemi frowned. You want Miss Becker to withdraw her testimony? I want us to make them think she's withdrawing her testimony. Set up a meeting to negotiate terms, make them feel like they're in control, then. Then what? Dr. Becker interrupted. Risk my wife's life on some elaborate trap? Papa, they're not going to release Mama even if I do withdraw my testimony, Adani said quietly. She's seen their faces, heard their plans. They can't let her go. The truth of that statement settled over the room like a shroud. Everyone understood what it meant. Mrs. Becker's life depended not on compliance, but on rescue. Then we rescue her, Dr. Becker said with quiet determination. Whatever it takes. The problem is time, Agent Adeyemi warned. 18 hours isn't enough to mount a comprehensive search and rescue operation across all possible locations in Lagos port facilities. Then we make time, Adani declared. By making them come to us. She pulled out her phone and began typing a text message to the kidnappers. I'm ready to discuss terms. But I want guarantees about my mother's safety. Meet me tonight, and we can work out the details of my testimony withdrawal. What are you doing? Dr. Becker asked. I'm going fishing, Adani replied. And I'm using myself as bait. But as she hit send on the message, none of them noticed the small tracking device that had been planted on Follerin's car during his visit to her office, a device that would lead the kidnappers directly to their location within the hour. The abandoned warehouse in Apapa Port looked like a movie set for the apocalypse. Rusted shipping containers created a maze of shadows under harsh floodlights, while the sound of Lagos traffic seemed impossibly distant. Adani stood at the center of it all, wearing a wire and surrounded by enough hidden EFCC tactical support to invade a small country. Remember, Agent Adeyemi's voice crackled through her earpiece. Keep them talking as long as possible. We need time to locate your mother and neutralize all threats simultaneously. Adani checked her phone, 11:47 p.m. The kidnappers had agreed to meet at midnight, giving her 13 minutes to prepare mentally for what might be her final confrontation with Lagos's criminal underworld. Movement from the east, came a voice from the tactical team. 2 vehicles approaching, possibly more following. The first vehicle to emerge from the container maze was a black SUV with tinted windows. It stopped 50 meters away, and 3 men emerged. The leader, a tall man in an expensive suit, approached with the confident stride of someone accustomed to intimidating people. Miss Becker, he called out. I'm Mr. Okafor, no relation to your unfortunate husband. I represent certain business interests that have been negatively affected by your recent activities. Where is my mother? Safe. For now. But her continued well-being depends entirely on your cooperation going forward. What kind of cooperation? Mr. Okafor smiled, but it was the kind of expression that belonged on a shark. Complete withdrawal from all EFCC investigations. Public statements retracting your previous testimony. And a commitment to cease all interference in Lagos business affairs. And in return? Your mother goes home. Your family continues to enjoy good health. Your father's medical practice avoids unfortunate complications. The threat was delivered so casually that it took Adani's breath away. You're talking about terrorizing my entire family. I'm talking about protecting my business interests. Your crusade against Kemi Okafor and his associates has created unwanted attention from federal authorities. That attention is bad for everyone involved in alternative economic activities. Alternative economic activities? Import-export, currency exchange, personnel management, security consulting. All legitimate businesses that sometimes require creative interpretations of regulatory guidelines. Through her earpiece, Adani could hear Agent Adeyemi coordinating search teams across multiple container storage facilities. They still hadn't located her mother, but they were running out of time. "I need proof that my mother is alive and unharmed," Adani said. Mr. Okafor gestured to one of his associates, who produced a tablet displaying a live video feed. Mrs. Becker was visible in what looked like a shipping container, tied to a chair but apparently uninjured. "She's being held less than 200 meters from here," Mr. Okafor explained. "Close enough that we can resolve this situation quickly once you agree to our terms." "What guarantees do I have that you'll actually release her?" "You have my word." "The word of a kidnapper and extortionist?" His expression hardened. "Miss Becker, I think you misunderstand the nature of this negotiation. You don't have leverage here. You have obligations." "Actually," Adani said, pulling out her phone, "I think you might be surprised by how much leverage I have." She showed him the screen, which displayed a live news broadcast from Channels Television. "EFCC raids major criminal network, dozens arrested in coordinated operation across Lagos." Mr. Okafor's face went pale as he read the headlines. "What is this?" "This is what happens when you threaten the wrong family," Adani replied. "While you were planning this kidnapping, the EFCC was dismantling your entire organization. Maritime security solutions, import-export fronts, currency exchange operations, personnel management companies, all of it." "That's impossible." "Is it?" "Because it turns out that when you threaten a federal witness, you give the EFCC probable cause to investigate every aspect of your business affairs. And when they investigate businesses like yours," Adani smiled coldly, "they find all sorts of interesting evidence." Through her earpiece, she heard Agent Adeyemi. "Target acquired. Your mother is in Container Block 7, Section C. Teams are in position." Mr. Okafor was frantically making phone calls, trying to reach his associates. But his calls were going to voicemail or disconnected numbers. "Looking for your friends?" Adani asked. "They're a little busy right now. Something about being arrested for money laundering, human trafficking, and domestic terrorism." "This isn't over," he snarled, reaching inside his jacket. But before he could draw whatever weapon he was reaching for, red laser dots appeared on his chest and forehead. EFCC tactical team members emerged from behind shipping containers on all sides, automatic weapons trained on him and his associates. "EFCC! Drop your weapons and get on the ground!" The next few minutes were controlled chaos as the tactical team secured the scene and Agent Adeyemi coordinated the rescue of Mrs. Becker. Within 10 minutes, mother and daughter were reunited while Mr. Okafor and his associates were being loaded into EFCC transport vehicles. "Is it finally over?" Mrs. Becker asked, holding Adani tightly. "It's over, Mama. All of it." But Agent Adeyemi approached with a tablet showing arrest reports from across Lagos. "Actually, Miss Becker, it's just beginning. The evidence we've gathered tonight has given us probable cause to investigate dozens of other criminal organizations. We're going to need your continued cooperation for the next several months." "More testifying? More court appearances? More justice," Agent Adeyemi corrected. "What started as a simple marriage fraud case has uncovered the largest criminal network in Lagos state history. Your courage to pursue the truth has potentially saved hundreds of other families from becoming victims." 3 months later, Adani stood outside the Lagos State High Court after the final sentencing hearing in the Kemi Okafor case. Kemi had received 15 years for fraud, theft, domestic violence, and conspiracy. Mr. Nwachukwu got 20 years for organizing the domestic worker spy network. Mr. Okafor and his associates were facing life sentences for kidnapping and domestic terrorism. "How does it feel?" Folarin asked, joining her on the courthouse steps. "Strange," Adani admitted. "I set out to get revenge on one lying husband, and I ended up helping to dismantle half the criminal underworld in Lagos." "Any regrets?" "Just one." She looked at him seriously. I regret that it took being betrayed by a con artist to realize how strong I actually am. Folarin smiled. Well, if it helps, I've learned something too. What's that? I've learned that the most impressive woman I've ever met happens to be single again. Adunni laughed, feeling lighter than she had in months. Folarin Adebayo, are you asking me out? I'm asking if you'd consider giving legitimate romance a try. With someone whose identity has been thoroughly verified by federal authorities. I'll think about it, she said. But first, I have a wedding to annul, a business to restart, and a book to write. A book? How I accidentally married a criminal and brought down Lagos's biggest crime syndicate. I figure it might help other women avoid similar mistakes. And the subtitle? A Guide to Turning Betrayal into Justice, one court case at a time. As they walked down the courthouse steps together, Adunni felt something she hadn't experienced in almost a year, genuine hope for the future. She had entered this ordeal as a naive woman who trusted too easily. She was leaving it as someone who understood that true strength came not from avoiding betrayal, but from refusing to let betrayal define you. Behind them, Chioma emerged from the courthouse with her twin daughters, finally free to start a new life without fear. The children would grow up knowing their father was in prison, but they would also grow up knowing their mother was strong enough to protect them from his legacy of violence and deception. 6 months later, the Lagos newspapers would report on Adunni's engagement to Folarin, a real engagement this time, with verified identities, background checks, and the blessing of both families. The headline read, From Scandal to Success, How Lagos's Most Famous Bride Found Real Love. But that's another story entirely. The end. Underscore 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 underscore. Final message to viewers. Thank you for following Adunni's incredible journey from betrayal to justice. If this story inspired you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that they're stronger than they know. Subscribe for more powerful stories of resilience and revenge from across Africa. And remember, sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can become the catalyst for the best thing you'll ever do. Until next time, this has been Tales by Hayomide.